Hello, and welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Amanda, and my amazing co-host is...
Hello, I'm Megan.
Hey. All right, so we are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool life. We aren't influencers who record videos in front of perfect homes and green screens and share a highlight reel of only the best parts of our homeschool lives while, sweeping the messy days under the rug.
Yeah, exactly. Who has the time for that, right?
I try to put together the occasional be real so that we can use it on our social media. They are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and it's kind of silly how long it takes me to get like one 60-second reel of like, oh, okay, you can see my head and my hands in the video now. Okay, you can use this one.
I know. It's bananas, right? But here's the deal. Like, we love homeschooling. So this isn't a bitch fest where we show up and complain about our kids or our lack of personal time or any of the other stuff, right? But it only makes sense to us to present a balanced depiction of what our days look like. If you're considering homeschooling or you're new to homeschooling and all you're seeing is this highlight reel, it's like, what the heck am I doing wrong, right? None of us are perfect. Even the influencers aren't, and they would like you to believe that they have it all together all the time, but absolutely not.
So true. Yeah. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about boredom, right? Boredom, it's not just downtime, it's developmental gold. It equips kids with creativity, problem solving ability, self sufficiency, emotional resilience, and executive control. So it's that thing, like letting them experience nothing to do often leads them to doing something pretty extraordinary, but it is becoming more and more rare in our overscheduled lives. I don't think any of us would be like, no, we don't have that problem at all in our home. So today's topic, we'll be exploring this idea, right? And some of the hurdles that we sometimes hear as an objection or, well, that won't work in my home, that kind of goes along with allowing our kids this like boredom and downtime.
Mhm.
But first, we do like to kick off our episodes with a weekly recap. It's all part of this like keeping it real vibe that we've got going. So, how's your week been, Megan?
It's been good. Yeah. I mean, we've been getting a lot of stuff done. We've talked in the last couple of episodes about how we've been working on courses. And so we've got 2 courses up and running, and the last one is like so close to being done. So that's been kind of a big summer initiative for us, and we are rocking it. So that's been good. We are still in Florida at my parents' house. We fly back to Portugal at the end of the week. So there's just a bunch of prepping for that. Like, my daughter uses a skin cream, for example. It's a prescription thing that's not available in Europe at all. So we've been going to Walgreens like every 5 days and filling another one. The pharmacist is starting to get very suspicious. That's why we just keep refilling them so quickly. But we're cash paying customers. We don't have insurance in the United States anymore. So there's nothing like there's nobody to stop us. The insurance can say like, oh, it's an every 30 days kind of thing, but you can't really do that. So yeah, so it's just been like silly things like that. My youngest kiddo has been watching Wimbledon like bananas with my mom. So he was in it to win it, and it ended over the weekend. So that's a bit of a bummer. Although I think there was a plan hatched to watch some really classic tennis matches this week that they kind of brought up during the commentary and stuff last week. So I think they might try to stream some of those this week, which will be good. But they had a fun time together, which was good. I was hoping to be in DC collecting our visas this week, but that is not the case. They have not come through yet. So we fly back to Portugal Friday. We get to Portugal on Saturday. And I can almost guarantee you that our visas will come through like on Monday next week because,
Of course.
of course, right? Yeah, exactly. But I will not complain because I'll just be happy that they're done. And I will
Yep.
get back on a plane and come back to the United States to get them stamped into our passports. So yeah. And then while we've been at my mom's house, I'm doing like a little DIY, which has been fun. I have from the 80s this Cookie Monster wagon that's like the thing. It was my bribe gift for giving up my pacifier when I was like 2-ish. And my mom had said to me, she laid out this whole story about, we called them Noopies. So she was like, there's this baby who can't afford a Noopie. And I thought maybe we could give him your Noopie and blah, blah, blah. And I could get you a big girl surprise. And I was like, okay. And so I signed on to give mine up if I got this Cookie Monster wagon. And of course, this is before the internet. And then my mom goes to get the Cookie Monster wagon and it's fucking sold out everywhere. And so my mom ended up, we lived in New York. My mom had to go to like Secaucus, New Jersey or something to get like open the yellow pages and like call all the Toys R Us's until she
Yeah.
found one. So my kids used it literally to the point that the wheels fell off of it. My oldest son 3D printed new wheels for it, which have also now since fallen off of it. And I was like, I can't get rid of him. He's so special. So I legit looked into bronzing him the way people do baby shoes. And that seemed
course you did.
impractical. Yeah, I totally did. But I'm going to turn him into a bookshelf. So he needs a fresh new coat of Cookie Monster blue paint. He's pretty banged up and his eyes have yellowed from the sun. My youngest child was like, he should have his liver checked.
Being like, yeah, he's banged up. He's faded. He's got jaundice. Like, poor guy.
He's been very well loved. So that's my goal for this week, is to get him all spiffed up. And then I'm going to bring him back to Portugal and put him on the wall as a bookshelf. So he shall live on. It's like his third reincarnation, because he was mine. And then my kids had him. And now he will not make it to grandkids. He will be a bookshelf for the rest of his days. So.
And that's it. I can't imagine any of your kids would be like, I think that's safe to put my kid in by the time they're at the point where they have kids to put in.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh my gosh. He's going to take on a new life. It'll be great. I'll share him in our Patreon chats once he's done and he's hung on it. I've already like brainstormed what books will go on him, because I can't just do like any books, but I think I'm going to put like some of like the favorites that I love, like Harold and the Purple Crayon, and the ones that like when my kids were little, I just like loved reading. And so those are the ones that I think I'm going to put. So it'll be good. But yeah. How's your week been?
Yeah, for the most part, it's been good. We had a couple rough days just because we had been traveling and we got back. And so, like, I'd like kind of a chronic illness flare sort of thing. And I don't necessarily have the patience. And so, like when something doesn't go perfect and then I'm far from a perfect parent and like it sort of spirals into a little bit of an unfortunate day. But, for the most part, it's been fine. I had a bunch of stuff that I needed to catch up on for Homeschool Moms Unfiltered things. And I did get most of that done. I got the monthly newsletter out for the Patreon group, and I worked on a bunch of curriculum scripts and stuff, but it was all stuff that I could do from bed. So that worked out pretty well. I did make it out of bed yesterday, both to go for dim sum and then to do some course recording. So, like that's going pretty well. A friend of mine emailed me at the end, or texted me technically, asking me if I was home and ready for peopling. And I was like, I'm home and I should be ready for peopling by like Wednesday, maybe, hopefully, so like I'm getting there. So yeah, just like trying to get through things, like I said, mostly in bed and working on stuff and then trying to take it easy as I could. I am really excited this week though. Like, I guess I can recap next week, but this week I'm finally going to get my hair cut. If you ever watch us or see our clips, like you may have noticed that I'm bad at this type of self-care. And so my hair has been getting longer and longer since we started this podcast over a year ago, because I have not cut my hair in that entire time. I just haven't gotten around to it. Like my stylist, she's great, but you have to message her like 3 months in advance before you want the haircut. And that's just, I don't know, it just kept falling off my plate. So I'm finally going tomorrow after like 18 months or something ridiculous. So that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, things good. Yeah, pretty good. Hopefully things continue to go pretty well. We'll see.
Yeah, we're on a roll, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so back to boredom and not getting your haircut. If you have listened to us at all before this episode, you will be shocked to hear that we love a combination of data and real talk about the topic that we're exploring. I have this really bad habit of starting a lot of conversations with, oh, I read a study about that. And my friends, and especially my family, they like 100% make fun of me for it. But I mean, the thing is, sure, we can show up here and tell you like, this is awesome and you should totally do it. But we all know that saying about opinions, right? Like opinions are like, everyone's got one. Doesn't mean we want to see it, right? And the reality is, it's heavy. Life is heavy. And now you've taken on your child's education as well. Like sometimes just a bit of expert knowledge and peer-reviewed data and just the likes of all of that can help give you a bit of confidence so that what you're doing is right and it's worth it and all of that jazz. So here we are.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know. I think I'm just the same level of nerd as you because I like reading studies. I find them fun, right? And I'm like, information, yay.
That's it. I mean, I when I was thinking about it, I'm like, my friends do sometimes make fun of me, but I have collected friends who are very similar, right? And I was like, oh, where was that? Who did you read? Like, who was that from? Whereas my family is just like, oh, a study, huh?
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love it, right? Well, this week's study it's written by Associate Professor Jamie. Oh, here we go with the names, right? I did go ahead and find this person's social media and stuff like that in preparation for this episode, because with the name Jamie, I wasn't sure about their pronouns. And from what I found online, my best assumption is that their pronouns would be she, her. So I got that far, but I couldn't find anything that had a pronunciation of this person's name. And so I was like, ah. So Jamie Jirout, again, she's an associate professor at the UVA School of Education and Human Development. And we can link the study in the comments, right, in the show notes for today's episode. But she's conducted this study and she talks about how safe, unstructured time is often so easily just kind of dismissed as boredom. Like, ugh, okay, like I'm so bored, I have nothing to do. But that time is just absolutely amazing, right? And can actually spark curiosity, creativity, problem solving, autonomy, and social skills in children. And it's so true. So we're going to kind of dig into some of those things today. This is all from the study. Oh, not the whole episode, but these next few points are from the study. And just kind of building that out, because it's great to have a high level roll up like that and be like, oh, okay, it does all these great things, but how, right? How, what, when, where, how do I start? What do I do? That tells me nothing otherwise. So as far as it being a catalyst for curiosity and creativity, first, let's set a baseline of how Jamie defines those two things. So curiosity, she defines as the moment a student experiences a gap in knowledge that motivates them to seek information. And then creativity, she defines as when students generate novel and useful ideas or products. And unstructured time offers the space for kids to be able to recognize uncertainty and then explore or imagine, setting the stage for creative thinking. If kids are just jam-packed all day long from moment to moment to moment, and we've kind of created this culture of we do these things because we need to check it off the list and say that we've done it, as opposed to really doing it for the sake of doing it and for the sake of, wallowing in it and enjoying it and marinating in it. When we have those timeframes, that's when you do have that ability to be like, I don't know the answer to that. Let's look it up. I mean, I have a book club on Fridays. Amanda's kiddo is in it. And we Googled, I showed up to that class prepared, right? I had tons of all this kind of stuff. We Googled 3 or 4 things in the class as a result of stuff that came up that the kids brought up. And it was like, I don't know. Let's look it up and see. Let's see what that's all about. And so allowing that freedom of exploration is just so fantastic.
Well, right. And that goes into the next point, this idea of modeling and helping kids learn how to do this and develop it. So Jamie also talks about the importance of scaffolding with light structure. And so some general ideas that were suggested are things kind of like, oh, maybe build a fort, or why don't you make a fairy garden? And it's this kind of idea where you're helping kids get started on something without telling them, like, do this. You're not telling them exactly how to do it. You're not telling them exactly where the materials are or what to use. Again, you're supporting. It's that scaffolding with it. And this idea with the scaffolding and the modeling, it helps balance autonomy with gentle support. It helps keep kids from becoming overwhelmed. And it also helps break that habit that some kiddos have where they want to just default to screen time because they're not really sure what to do now.
Yeah. I once inadvertently scaffolded independence and boredom genius just by being cheap, unwilling to buy the latest fad. I don't remember the story. So
Is this about Beyblades?
yeah, did I tell you?
Yeah, Ray, remember that story?
When we lived in North Carolina, like kids at co-op would have them. And I was like, I am not buying these pieces of plastic that spin into one another. Like, I'm just not. PS totally fast forward, like 2 years later, we totally ended up buying some. But at the beginning, I was like, no, not doing it. And my daughter was really, really sick one week, like shocked she didn't end up in the hospital levels of sick. She was so sick. I literally sat there for a week and dripped water into her mouth through a straw. And the pediatrician was like, that's the only way that kid stayed out of the hospital. Cause she goes, I totally thought we were going to end up having to admit her. So she was my sole focus for the week. My two boys were on their own. And because I couldn't buy the Beyblades, they invented them. And they invented a whole game structure and this whole thing. And it was hilarious. But the best part was, my favorite part was like at the end of the week, once Astrid started to feel a little bit better and she had like consumed a milkshake or something like that, right? And I was tucking Liam in and I go, I'm really sorry that I ignored you a whole bunch this week. When you were sick and you needed me, I'd spend all that time with you and, this and that. I had like a little bit of mom guilt, And he goes, he looked at me so shocked and he goes, I had the best week ever. And I was like, he goes, yeah. He goes, sometimes the screaming would be a bit much because Astrid was in so much pain. I mean, just brutal pain that she was just like, she would just scream when her Tylenol or her were off. He's like, sometimes the screaming was like a bit much, but otherwise I had the best week ever. They had so much fun just being left to their own devices to create this whole imaginary world. And I was like, great. So sometimes just by not agreeing to buy the thing that they're hell-bent on having, if they're that hell-bent on having it, they'll figure out how to make it or improvise it or create their own version or whatever. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So
it's true. My kiddo's super into Legos. We've talked about that before. And we have gotten to the point where now he gets Legos for specific things. We'll buy sets or whatever. But for the most part, he gets quite a bit of cash money from family and for different things and stuff. And so he's having to start saving his money and buying the ones that he wants. But he really doesn't like spending $100 or more on a Lego set. So at this point, he's got thousands and thousands of bricks. And so it's that thing. He will get a catalog, he'll look the pictures up on his computer, and then he makes it himself. And not only has he saved money, but he has done amazing work, right? I mean, the amount of creativity and spatial awareness and just all of those things that comes into figuring out how to make this without the right pieces and the instruction manual. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's so cool, right? And there's our next point from the study talking about the skill development beyond academics. There's so much learning in all of this, the ability to problem solve and critical think and all of that. And, I feel like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even in the 80s, kids, they just went outside and played, right? And they just had they had oodles of unstructured time. And
for better or worse, I mean, let's be fair. There's a whole lot out there right now about how kind of like my generation, especially I'm Gen X, and, maybe even the generation before me, like we were, babysitting our siblings by the time we were like 7 or 8 years old. And we were, kind of put into these adult situations at a much younger age than we should have been. So there are definitely pros and cons to how we were growing up.
But it was interesting because my kids had that. The block that we lived on was just like this throwback to the old days where the kids are outside from the moment the sun came up till the moment the sun went down. And they would come up with the most whacked out games ever, smashing rocks and, sweeping up leaves with toilet bowl brushes and like whatever. I mean, they would come up with like the most random things to do with themselves. And it took this collective effort of coming together and making a plan and gathering supplies and creating structure and boundaries to all of it and whatever. I mean, there was so much learning to it that was unbelievable. So, I mean, you brought up an outdoor fort, right? If they are doing an outdoor fort, they're learning spatial reasoning. Like they have to figure out how to get it to stay up, right? Maybe they build it and they're on the inside and now they're stuck on the inside because the opening is big enough, or they're stuck on the outside and they got to figure out how to get it in.
Yeah.
If they're doing it with friends, like I mentioned, there has to be that social negotiation that comes through it to collaborate and come up with all of this. So there's just so much that's there. I mean, even in those days when my kids were, living feral outside in the street outside of our house with all the neighbor kids, I mean, it was hilarious. They would all kind of like pool stuff together and be like, I'm hungry. And somebody would come in and take a bag of chips from our house. Some kid would bring out the water from their garage fridge. There is this pooling together of resources and cooperation that happens. And it's just, it doesn't happen if they're super structured. And, it's like I wake up and then I have tutoring and then I go to, Taekwondo and then I have a Girl Scout meeting and then I have piano. And then I like, where does that come in? Like, it's great to be able to expose your kids to different things, but there's got to be that balance, right? Of boredom versus doing the things they want to do or that you want them to do, or structured activities?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there also has to be a little bit of awareness about whether or not you're being a helicopter parent. Are you the parent that's like, I make sure I've got apples and I've got individual bags of chips and I've got, cheese sticks and I've got all of these things and they know they have access to them. So I'm going to leave it up to them to figure out when they're hungry and to share and create their own potluck picnic with the neighborhood kids. Or are you going to be the mom that's like, well, it's afternoon and they haven't had a snack. So I've sliced up oranges. Here they are, kids. You know, and there's a time to be the sliced oranges mom, but there's definitely a time to make sure that you're not being the sliced oranges mom.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I feel like for us in our home, we had kind of a unique situation around this when my kiddo was little, because first off, when he was little, we were going through fertility treatments, which if anyone has been through fertility treatments, they know like you're not the mom that you wanted to be when you're like totally pumped up on those. And then when you have to have the surgery for the retrieval and all of that jazz, like there's a lot that happens there, right? So you're just not the hands-on mom. And then second, he was an only child. Fertility treatments the second time around didn't work for us. So he definitely had more opportunities for boredom, but also he was one of those kids that on his second birthday, he was like, yo, I don't need naps anymore. Those are for babies. And he just dropped nap altogether the day he turned 2. I was like, this was not how we were supposed to celebrate 2. Now, in fairness, he had always been an incredible nighttime sleeper and he'd always been a shit napper. So it's not like it was a huge change, but still, as a stay-at-home mom with chronic illness, and at that time I already had Emmy and an only child who constantly wants to play with me, right? Like I needed that break. And
Mhm.
so we implemented quiet relax time in the afternoon, which, was like a couple of hours. It started out a little shorter than that because that's a lot for a 2-year-old, but we got it up to 2.5 hours in the afternoon when he would normally nap. And again, we called it quiet relax time because I had these grand plans that it would actually be quiet. In reality, I ended up like setting up a Montessori style toddler bedroom for him. So it was like super safe and he couldn't really hurt himself too much. He was expected to stay in his room for a couple of hours and he could play and do whatever he wanted in there as long as he didn't come out. In hindsight, if I really wanted it to be quiet, I should have removed the drum kit from his room. But again, hindsight. Yeah. Anyway, we started this afternoon quiet relax time. And as he got older, he started like really holding on to and protecting that time. And now, as a tween, for sure, I mean, we're getting shockingly close to being able to call him a teenager. I'm not ready for it. But with this time, he wants that time to just let his creativity flow, or sometimes just to relax. There will 100% be times that I go to ask him something and I'm like, oh, is he not in here? And he's actually up in his loft bed, like just quietly laying there. And I'll be like, oh, is everything okay? Like, oh, I'm just thinking about things. Okay, you just think
Think
about
on.
things.
Yeah.
So how about you, Megan? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but do you feel like you did a good job of prioritizing this in your home when your kiddos were little?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe more so for my boys because my daughter started dancing when she was young and immediately wanted more. It's like, and that's where her friends then became, and that was kind of her thing. And at a certain point, she decided she was done with that, and that was fine. Then that ended. But so she would play kind of around or have her boredom time around her dance schedule. But my boys have always been kind of free activity kind of kids. That's just their preference. We've tried things. We tried soccer, we tried basketball, we tried swimming, we tried, we would try things here and there just to make sure that the exposure and the opportunity were there. But generally speaking, like even my 13-year-old to this day, he's like, I do one thing a day. You're going to have to prioritize what that is. And so it was funny because last Tuesday I was trying to convince him to do something. I forget what it was. And my parents had already said we were going out for pizza for dinner. And he was like, if I'm going out for pizza for dinner, that's my activity. Like, that's it. And he goes, I understand that pizza is a non-negotiable because it's a family dinner. So then your thing can't happen. And I was like, okay, no problem. Like,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've always been a big fan of that and kind of minimalism with toys as far as not a lot of lights and batteries and sounds and, just a bat and a ball or a bicycle or sidewalk chalk or whatever it is, just kind of very simplistic because then you have to figure out what to do with them.
And I think that that brings up a good point, though. Like, your boys tend to be a bit more introverted than your daughter, right?
Mhm.
And so, for anyone who's listening, I really encourage you to think about that and remember that just because you have an outgoing kiddo, an extrovert, it, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't still have this boredom time. It's definitely a shift, and it can be hard for them too. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But again, it's important even for your extrovert to be like, okay, we're not going to go to the park and hang out with our friends or, do this or get online and play a game with our friends. You need some time that's just you to be bored and just be like, what am I going to do now? It's important. It's important for development.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. So, some tips if this is a brand new world for you, and maybe you're just stepping out of traditional education where your kid started their day like they've been shot out of a cannon, maybe went to aftercare, maybe went to extracurriculars, then came home, had homework, got a shower, family dinner, read a book, go to bed. And you're
Yeah.
never been right. That thing has never, you're like, I don't even know how to begin what you're talking about here.
Yeah, or like our whole day is my kid sitting around being like, I am bored because
Right.
suddenly they aren't like on this crazy schedule being dictated by a teacher and like hordes of
Yeah.
students moving through the hallways together all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a huge transition for kids if they've
Mhm.
been in that environment, especially the longer they've been in that environment. So
Yeah.
it's really tough. So, yeah. And I think it's interesting because we have a course about preschool and kindergarten and what an age appropriate, developmental appropriate approach to those two kind of phases of life are. But it was interesting because I was having a conversation with somebody about what has happened with kindergarten and how it has accelerated so much. And one of the interesting things that we talked about was so many kids go to preschool because you have more and more working parents. That's just become a trend that has continued to grow over decades. And preschool costs like a mortgage payment, right? It's
Yeah.
that shit expensive. And so I feel like in order to justify in a way that fee, which for me, the justification for that fee is that you keep my kid alive and safe all day long and happy. That's the end of it for me. But that's not what it is, right? It's like, oh, well, we're going to do crafts and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we're going to teach them the alphabet and they're going to do self-portraits every month. My kid, when they went to preschool, every month they did a self-portrait. And then at the end of the year, you got like this flip book of how they've progressed to knowing that they have two eyes, and all this stuff. And so it's interesting because when we talk about what kids used to learn in kindergarten, most of the kids have that already because they've been in some sort of daycare / preschool setting
Yeah.
where in order to keep these kids occupied all day, that's what they did. So now
Yeah.
everything is trickling down and accelerating. But yeah, so it's really hard because some of these kids, like since birth, basically have been occupied all day long. And I'm not saying my kids went to daycare too. I worked full time. I'm not saying how could you make that choice for your child? You've screwed them up
Yeah.
for life, right? We do what we have to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I cried under my desk more times than I can count about leaving daycare. It's just part of the job. But any time is an okay time to step back and kind of start to assess what you might be able to pull out and what you might be able to remove. I, like you said, Amanda, wouldn't go from like 100 to 0 in a day and be like, entertain yourself all day. They'll implode. They have no idea what to do, right? So I would think just starting with like small pockets of time and like you said, scaffold those pockets of time so that they have an idea of what they might use it for in the beginning. But maybe you just plant the seed of the idea and then they grow the seed as opposed to you structuring the entire thing. And then you can continue to grow and make the times longer or give them a little bit more freedom or stop giving them the idea or give them even a half-cooked idea to back some of that off.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think that's totally true. Okay, so we have more to talk about, but before we do that, Meagan mentioned it, and we do just want to make sure that everyone listening knows we now have courses. I'm super excited. We have online courses. They are video based. They come with a workbook. They, well, I suppose you could do them in a day if you were really like, I actually have a free day and I'm going to bust this out. But they're kind of designed to be like a week each so that it's like easy to slot in around all of the other stuff you have going on. We have 3 so far. There's a Homeschool 101, No Panic Boot Camp. There's Preschool and Kindergarten Reimagined, which is the one Meagan had mentioned. And then we're putting the finishing touches on a guide to picking curriculum, especially secular inclusive curriculum for all ages, right? So kind of first grade through graduating high school and even some college classes that we're going to talk about. And so it's just that thing. We want to make sure that people know about it. You can check it out yourself if you're at a point where you're like, oh, I think I want to do this and I want a little bit more. Or if you've been doing it for a little while and you're like, oh, I just feel like I need to be a little bit more intentional, but I don't know how, I don't know where to start. You could do one. We have some bundles that saves you a little bit of money. I'm going to be honest, if you're listening to this the day this airs, they're available, but we've got some of our Patreon members beta testing them for us right now, just to make sure that the workbooks print correctly and like the course distribution software that we're using runs smoothly and all of that jazz. So in the next couple of days, they'll like for sure any tweaks we need to make, they'll be done, but you can log on and get started whenever you want. We would be super excited. We truly, we're like, I know we made them, so like, what does that mean? But we're really proud of these resources. We have both. I'm sure if you're not listening to us for the first time, you know that we have both taken a fair number of online courses. And we have pretty strong opinions about a lot of things, including what makes a course like worth it. None of us have time to waste or money to waste. And we wanted these to not only be worth your time, but to feel like they're a really good value. And again, like obviously, I'm pretty biased because I think we totally nailed this. But I will also say that the initial feedback from our testers is like super positive and like enough that I totally drank to it. So I'm sure Meagan didn't. She's not a drinker. Was like, oh yeah, we nailed that. So yeah, you should totally check them out. We'll have links here in the show notes. You'll be able to find them from our website. We'll have them posted in our Patreon group. I'm sure they'll occasionally make it on they'll probably be in our linked tree on our Instagram, and then they'll be in our social media and stuff like that too. But check it out.
Yeah, if by some miracle you can't find them, just send us a message to help you. We've learned. So, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I know nothing about SEO, search engine optimization, like nothing. But if you type in homeschool moms unfiltered on Google, you get like 3 pages of us. Like, I'm like, that was not a strategic influencer type thing. That just happened. And we were like, look at us. Well, yeah. So it's pretty hard not to find us. So back to boredom. All right. So
boredom. Hopefully you're not too bored with this. I'm to talking about boredom.
Much better segue. I like it. Are you still awake? Have we bored you to sleep yet? Oh my gosh, I'm telling you. All right. So I've had conversations with parents about boredom before, whether it's in coaching sessions that Amanda and I have done, or just at the park or at a world schooling event or whatever. And there's 2 main objections that we typically hear. And Amanda and I were like, yes, these are the ones we hear the most often, right? So These are the ones we wanted to talk about today. And this first one, I totally get because I have 3 kids and they are within 3 years and 9 months of one another. So
you were busy.
I was busy. I know.
Out of your mind, but that's a whole other.
Speaking of me not being a drinker, one time I was at work and there was this guy who had like a slight dirty old man vibe, but it was like not at the tipping point where it was offensive. Like it was like he pulled it off. It was okay, you know? This was pre-Me Too. Post-Me Too, I'm glad he was retired. I'm sure it wouldn't have gone well for him. Yeah. But anyway, I was walking one day and oh my gosh, I was with one of the girls or something. And he said something to me about like having a smoke or having a drink or something like that. And I was like, I don't drink. I forget exactly what it was. And I was pregnant. Shocking. And he pointed at me in my stomach and he goes, I know what your vice is. Wait, what? Wait. The fact that I keep popping children out. Not so much, right? Totally forgot about that until you just said that. But yeah, it was a busy few years. We figured we were super broke and super tired. We might as well just be done with it. Cause I'm like, if we got out of the broke tired phase, I like the thought of going back, you know, I'm like, oh my, like I had a pregnancy scare when Liam was like 4, 5, something like that. Oh, I thought I was going to vomit into my hand. Like I was like, I can't even fathom. I
Oh,
mean, we would have done
yeah.
it. We would have loved it. But like, holy shit. Like, oh my gosh, no. No, thank you.
No, yeah, I totally hear you. We've talked about this before. We've done an entire book series on it, right? About being like in perimenopause. And so I'm firmly, solidly in perimenopause, but there is a big spike of women getting pregnant in perimenopause because they don't realize how fertile you can accidentally be at certain times during perimenopause. And for us, I haven't used any sort of contraception or birth control in a decade because, I mean, like we did IVF, we couldn't get pregnant. Like, what's the point? Like worrying about any of that. But every once in a while, I think about it. And my husband's like, should one of us do something? Because, like, at this point, like he's 50. Like, we are not looking at trying the diaper phase again. Like,
Oh my
can you
gosh. I'm
imagine?
telling you. My husband is the oldest of 5, so all the sister-in-laws are younger than me. I take that back, actually. One of my sister-in-laws is a bit older than me for a younger brother, but they all had kids after us. And
Okay.
like right before COVID started, my sister-in-law had a baby and she was like, "Do you want to hold him?" And I was like, "Not really, but like, how do you say that?" I was like, then they start crying and I don't know why they're crying. Like, no, I'm good. I have teenagers. I'm good. You enjoyed that. Okay. So yeah, right. So I totally get the sibling situation because we had a hairy, like, first 4, 5, 6, 7 years, right? I will say
6, 7. Can
17 now. I will say though, so I was an only, right? Or I am an only. And so I raised the kids with this messaging from the time they were old enough to hear. Like, do you understand how lucky you are to have one another? This is your support network. These are your friends. This is your community. You guys have one another, and this is a gift that you have that so many people would love to have. And so this is it. And they really have, I have to say, they get along and they're friends. So as much as they do have their moments every once in a while, generally speaking, I don't really have like a huge sibling thing. I think I just like kumbaya'd them into submission by like loving having siblings. It was like a whole thing. But I do get that that's more common with siblings where
Yeah.
people are like, if I give them unstructured time, they're just going to fight. They're going to want to kill each other all day long. And then here I am having to navigate all of this. And so I
Yeah.
do get that. So
I wonder, again, I have siblings, but I was 6, 7 years older than my siblings by
yeah,
the time they came around. So we had a very different relationship than a traditional sibling relationship. And I have an only. We have been foster parents and we do a lot of those kinds of things, but that's a different dynamic for sure. My kiddo, has always been very loving and supportive and helpful in those situations. So again, it's not a typical sibling situation. But I was reading something on Facebook just recently about a parent who was saying, I've actually found that when I'm close by, the kids fight far more because they know I'll intercede and like tell them who's right and who's wrong and like be the final decision maker. And when I'm not there, they actually work better together. And so she's like, I've done a little bit of spying and I've decided that I'm going to leave them to their own devices more often because they figure it out better. And I was like, again, I have no firsthand knowledge of it, but I think it's worth thinking about if you've got kids that tend to like argue and bicker, especially around you, because they're waiting for you to be like the decision. Like mom will be the tiebreaker, or mom will be the final say. I mean, maybe if you're not there, like
a
what
little
does that
Lord of
do?
the Flies action.
I mean, maybe not
Or,
full Lord of the Flies action.
right? But I mean, the reality is conflict is uncomfortable, but not always bad. Like you're saying, if you're not there to intercede, they learn how to negotiate, they learn boundaries, they learn emotional regulations. My kids are really good with one another as far as like knowing when another one is going to go over the edge. Not even because of something they're doing, but just they're too tired, they're too hungry, whatever. And they can like kind of sense this thing that like, oh, that one's about to fall apart or that one's about to blow, right? And they kind
Yeah.
of know. My oldest is like magical at navigating my youngest and making sure he can just like, pull him back in when he can sense that he's starting to unravel, right? And he's like you remember the dog whisperer? He's like the Liam's It's just amazing. So it can happen. I mean, learning to coexist in unstructured time is a super important skill. It's like any other skill. It's going to take practice. It's going to take coaching. And yes, you probably will have to get involved more in the beginning. But like most things, as you build that scaffolding, less and less involved, hopefully. So, I mean, there are things you can do. You can create a conflict game plan where you're kind of, if there's arguments that you know are going to be a thing, role play them ahead of time. There was a post, I don't know if you saw it not that long ago. I think it was in the Traveling with Kids Facebook group where this parent was like, is it just me, or every time you get on a plane, do your kids just fight mercilessly about who's going to sit by who and who's getting the window seat? This thing, right? When you're a certain number, you can't all sit in the same row. And then, of course, there's only one window and nobody wants the middle and all that kind of stuff. And so she was like, does anybody else have this? And I'm like, I genuinely don't, because everybody's kind of pretty good about rotating, but my kids are probably way older than hers now too.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, so it would be one of two things for me. Either we'd create a rotation chart where we all had a family meeting. We created a chart as far as how the structure is going to go, or it would be a family vote. And we'd all agree that it's like one of our fun things to do, that when we get through security, we pull out of a hat. And whatever you get, you get. But the kids need to be involved in that decision making and that planning. But if there's a constant source of conflict, root it out. Don't just keep banging your head against the wall.
Like, why is it always like this?
Like, put a place in place.
Imagining you, like, every trip you take, you booked it so you had 3 legs each way. Like, every kid got a window on one leg.
Well, and now that we've reached teenager stage, the aisle has become really good because my boys are so tall that they're like, Aiden especially, he's like, I need an aisle.
I'm short. Okay. Like, so and my family, they're all at least like 5'9" and above. I'm the only one that's coming in at 5'3", 5'4" on a good day. So even though I was older, when I was growing up, I always got stuck in the middle. And it was back, I can remember when we had like a station wagon or something, in the middle seat had the hump, where you like, and I still had to deal with it, right? Because my brothers fought all the time. And so I was stuck in the middle to make sure that they didn't fight with each other. And I thought that that was going to be done. But now that I'm a grown up and I have one kid and my husband, the kid always wants the window and the husband always needs the aisle because he's taller. And so I'm back in the middle seat. I'm forever stuck in the middle seat. The curse of being short.
Pull out of a hat once you make it through security. There you go. I'm just saying. Right?
Yep. So, problem solved.
The other thing you can do if you've got a sibling bickering problem is kind of set up a system or a rotation or whatever for solo time, where like my oldest, he likes to be by himself. And so he's best friends with my youngest, and they hang out together a ton and they travel independently together and they do day trips together all the time when we're at home and all that. But then he likes to come home and decompress and likes his alone time. And so in our newest living situation in our apartment in Portugal, the boys share a loft upstairs, which is a very long, narrow space, but it's one space. And they haven't shared a bedroom since they were toddlers. So I was like, okay. And I literally went to IKEA and I got some Billy bookshelves, and I just went straight, because it's a long, skinny room with like, it's an attic space, so pitched roof. I just went straight down the middle with some Billy bookshelves. So half the room is divided off and half the room is like an open living area. So you want your own quiet time? There's your space. Creating that space where he can check out and be like, now's my quiet time. Now they're old enough that if he communicates that to his brother's like, for the most part, is like, I got this. Like, he needs quiet time. He has raging ADHD. So sometimes the impulse is just like strong and he just say something. But for the most part, he's pretty respectful about it.
I'm positive that gets better. After I've had a long travel day, like it happens every time the kiddo and I travel on our own. We have a huge travel day. It takes so much out of me. And when I get home, I'm just like, please don't talk to me. Like, I made it. I survived. I'm going to go take a shower. I want something to drink. I want something good to eat. And then I'm going to lay down in bed. Like, that's it. And it never fails. My husband is like, so, and I'm like, I will eat your head. Okay. Yeah. I will be a prey. I will eat. Just no.
Like a prey, man.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know how many people listening will understand that reference, but yes, exactly.
My phrase is noodling. When I tell the kids I'm going to go noodle, they know that I'm ready for my decompression time. And they will still come from time to time, but they'll come in with a different energy too, because they know it's like, it's noodle time, right? And I'm like, I'm going to noodle. But I mean, you can give your kids scripts and phrases too that they can use with one another, where
Yeah.
they can say, like, oh, can we take turns? I would also like to, right? Or I need to go noodle, or I need some quiet. I need 20 minutes or something. If you tell Liam you need 20 minutes, he will set a timer for 20 minutes and he will keep it at 20 minutes, right? But
But
it works.
yeah, and talk about such a great life skill. I mean,
Yeah.
how many adults do you wish had this language and knew how to say these things? Like,
Mhm.
what a great life skill to be teaching, like, just at a young age.
Yeah. I mean, you could try a boredom jar with, you
Yeah.
could have two boredom jars. You could have a cooperative play boredom jar and a solo play boredom jar. And it's like, you're bored and you want to be by yourself? Pull from this jar. You're bored and you guys want to do something together? Pull from this jar. And it
Mhm.
takes some of that, what are we going to do and how are we going to approach it, out of the thing, because then they're going to fight about who picks the thing out of the jar. But there's a rotation for, right?
Or rock, paper, scissors, like
That
whatever.
work. So, I mean, I think, and again, it sucks in the early days, right? I read this book when I was pregnant and I was a perfect parent that said, in the
He was the best parent before he had kids.
right? I was so good. This guy who worked in IT at my company told me to read this book. I forget, it was called something like Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Baby, or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And we've talked about the fact that I sleep trained my kids, which is funny since I'm like the biggest hippie ever, but totally sleep trained my kids. And this guy from IT was like, it's going to suck so bad. He goes, you're going to want to let them fall asleep on you. You're going to want to just put them in the bed in between you because you're so freaking tired. He's like, but what you have to know is that if you put the work in at the beginning, the rest of it's, and it totally worked. But in the beginning, it was brutal when I was so tired. I was like,
No.
let's just go to bed. And so this is kind of that same thing. The first week might be really rough. The second week might be slightly less rough, right? Build. It will get better. And just remember, like, sibling squabbles doesn't mean you failed as a parent. They're practicing teamwork. It's freaking messy, but it's an essential life skill. Like, they've got this.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, like, the bottom line is that sibling squabbles, they don't mean that you failed as a parent. They're practicing teamwork, messy, but essential. And I think it's that thing too, in this day and age, I think many of us who are parenting know and understand better that conflict is essential. It's essential in human communication. You have to have conflict so you can have resolution, so that you have stronger relationships, and then you move forward. It's a cycle. It's actually like an official, if you've ever studied that kind of communication, it's like an official step in interpersonal communication is conflict. So just because there's some conflict, it's not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you handle it poorly.
Yeah, good point.
Man. All right. So the second objection that we kind of mentioned is this idea like, when I'm not entertaining them, they have no idea what to do. And I feel pretty confident in saying that this comes up with siblings. I know for sure it comes up with an only. There's definitely with an only, when they're little, especially, they rely very much on the caregiver or the parent as like their primary playmate. It's necessarily a bad thing, but it is worth having like a mindset shift on it. So it's that thing, right? It's not that your child is incapable. It's that they have never had to build this like self-directed play muscle of sorts, right? You're not seeing failure. You're just witnessing a gap that can be filled with support and time, right? I mean, for me, I say this all the time. People are like, well, when should I start traveling with my kid? They're too young to remember. Well, for me, if you can afford it, even just day trips or short trips, like traveling with your kid, you start teaching them from a young age how to be a good traveler. I feel like it's a skill that's no different than teaching them how to use silverware or teaching them, all of these other life skills. And it's the same with independent play and this how to fill boredom and what to do with boredom time. They need to develop this skill. And there is this thing it's called a boredom tolerance. It's developmental. It needs scaffolding, just like learning anything else. You have to teach your kiddo how to read. A lot of times, Megan just was like, hey, here's a book. But most of us taught our kids how to read, right? Most of us taught our kids how to ride a bike. Most of us taught them how to climb up a slide and then go down it, right? Like we do these things and we just think like, oh, well, that's normal. It's the same with teaching our kids how to be bored and how to make that boredom, you know, useful, right? Like it doesn't just have to be wasted time or like veg out in front of the TV time. And so some of the things you can do for that is again, this we talked about it before, but kind of like this structured, unstructured time where you might give them a suggestion or you might give them a few open-ended suggestions to choose from. You might say, maybe you can build with blocks or draw, or would you like to make a card for someone? And give them like some things to choose from where you're just, again, you're scaffolding, you're helping get it started. And then you're going to give less and less of that as they get better at this skill. You can create a go-to list. We 100% have this. It's a list of things. We put it together. We sat down, we talked about things that he might like doing when he's bored, projects that he wouldn't necessarily turn to, that he doesn't think about, but that he wants to do. And it's in our living room. It's on the wall in our living room. And so when he comes to me, because let's be real, he's still, as much as I think he's awesome and he's great at this, like there's still times where he's like, oh, I'm bored. And I'm always like, well, you've got two choices. You can go look at the list, or I'll give you some schoolwork to do. I'll give you something educational to work on. And the reality is at this point, we have done this enough, right? We've scaffolded on this and we've built it together. We've modeled it enough that sometimes he's like, yeah, can you give me something to do? I'd like to learn something, but I don't know what I want to learn. And other times he's like, oh yeah, let me go look at the list. See you later. I'm like, Pete,
You stay right there. I'm good.
Exactly. And then the other thing, and again, we kind of mentioned this, but just if they really don't know what to do and you're struggling with this, start with short goals. Start with 15 minutes. You can even set a timer, whether that's an Alexa or something like that, that's going to let everyone know when the 15 minutes is up. Or maybe it's one of those visual timers. We just talked about it and suggested them before where the time kind of counts down so the kiddo knows when they have finished. And you can start small and build this muscle, build the ability. We do not expect you to be able to start at 2.5 hours like our quiet relax time in our home. That's completely unrealistic. It certainly didn't start there when we were doing it in our own home. And it's there now with a tween. So start small, build on it. It really is worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So look, I think the bottom line is helping your child learn to occupy themselves. It is a gift. It's not a withdrawal of support. It's not a failure as a parent because you refuse to get down on the floor and play with your kiddo. It's an expansion of their independence. And it's hard to figure out how to do it, but it's totally worth it.
I laughed a little because in my less stellar parenting moments, which we all have, sometimes they'd be like, can you come? And I'm like, I birthed you playmates. You're not. Like, I've been busy all day. I'm noodling and I birthed you some playmates. Could you please? But so you're like, it's not that you're not willing to get down on the floor. Oh yeah, some days I was not.
Well, but the thing is, but that's true, but they can totally overlap. I mean, that's kind of the point. You need time, but they also need to develop this skill. And you didn't teach your kids to use silverware because you refuse to feed them anymore, right? Like you just taught them to use silverware because that's an important part of growing up. Like you're not going to go with them to college and be like, open up for the airplane, Tommy. And I think you taught them silverware because it was important for them to know how to use silverware. And it did help that you were actually able to feed yourself a warm meal at some point. It is the same. Like, this is the same kind of skill.
I like that. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness. All right. So we're about to wrap up for the day. But if you are not already over on our Patreon, and I don't mean a paid member of our Patreon, I just mean on Patreon. We are there. You can follow us for free on Patreon. We put out stuff for free members. It's kind of our way of just being able to put out communications. That's where we found our testers. Amanda was saying earlier, our course testers are from Patreon. You didn't have to be a paid member. It was just an open call. Whoever follows us and is interested in jumping on this new adventure with us. So come and follow us. Amanda puts out a newsletter that I just love. It's got so much info, and it's just like a cute little wrap up of what we've been doing on the podcast and what we've been doing in life, what we've been reading, and all kinds of stuff. So, and it's just a great way to start conversation over there as well. If you ever decide you want to come and join us for live meetings, book club is moving there in the fall. We're going to be having live book club meetings. And there are so many different ways that you can join Patreon. You could just join for book club. You can just join for unit studies. You can join for all of it. Like whatever works for you works for us. But you can just be a free member too and just come over and hang out. And we post little updates and all kinds of stuff. So come hang out with us. I mean, it's in the show notes, but again, you can type Patreon, Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. We come up because we are search engine optimization wizards. No, but
we stumbled into it, but we're there.
I'm more like Katie Couric when she was like, what is internet? Have you ever seen that clip? When Bryant Gumbel was trying to explain to her what the internet is, it's fantastic. But Bryant Gumbel also didn't know what the internet was. So it was like an early version of mansplaining where he was like, it's the World Wide Web. You know, you can like message people and they're hilarious. And they're like, why would anyone want to do that? And then they're trying to figure out what the @ symbol is and an email address, and they couldn't figure it out. I mean, it was fantastic. That's more my level of SEO optimization skill. But somehow, if you type it into Google, it will come up and it'll be great. So come hang out with us.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Our mantra to end the episode: boredom isn't a parenting fail. It's fertile ground. Step back, exhale, and trust that I'm bored might just be the spark that leads to your kid's next big idea.
Yeah, for
Could
sure.
be.
Yeah.
All right, friends. We'll catch you on Thursday for book club. Hopefully we'll see you over on Patreon. And in the meantime, happy homeschooling.
Yeah. Have a great one.